I'll see you on the next one. No puede ser. I'll see you on the next one. I'll see you on the next one. Oh, it's going so bad. So we're back with the fourth video of the Tour of Europe stock market series, and I'm standing up for the intro, something different. So we got something different for the video as well. We got a bit of a different format. Today I'm joined by Bert from Dividend Shots, which is a big Instagram page on investing and finance, and he also has a YouTube channel with the same name. And rather than do a back and forward video, we decided to organize a Zoom call, and we had a little bit of a discussion, bit of a chat about investing, and specifically investing in the Netherlands and in the AEX index. So let's get into the video. What's up guys, my name is Jonny. Welcome to Millennials with Money. I upload to YouTube on Wednesdays and Sundays, giving you tips on how to take control of your money today to create a bright financial future tomorrow. If you like what you see on the channel, then why not hit the like button, click subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and become part of the ever-growing Millennials with Money community. Bert, good to have you on the channel. How you doing?
I'm fine. How about you?
Yeah, really good, thanks. So obviously today we're talking about the stock market in the Netherlands. So I reached out to you on this one. I know a few weeks ago you did a discussion with Genuine Impact, the new finance app, and you talked a bit about your investing. And as I was tuned in, I saw you talking a lot about how you have a lot of investments in the Netherlands. And I was like, man, I have to get this guy in my series and talk about the Netherlands when we come around to doing that. So yeah, tell me a bit about, tell us a bit about yourself and kind of how you're into investing and all that kind of stuff.
All right. My name is Bert van Dijk. I live in the Netherlands, in the southern part of the Netherlands, close to the border of Belgium. I studied finance and marketing at university, and I finished it like 6 years ago. And right now I'm a teacher in high school. I teach economics and business economics. So I also teach about the subject we're talking about today. So that's kind of exciting. I like to invest in stocks. I started doing so like 3 years ago. I like to invest a fixed portion of my income each month. I like to target about 20% each month. And in that way, I want to build capital.
Yeah.
To receive a lot of dividends.
Yeah, hence your name Dividend Shots, right?
I also run an Instagram channel, which I also started in 2019 in the summer, which has grown pretty fast. And yeah, that's also what I'm doing in my spare time. So creating the posts, and since I'm always thinking about stock market and looking at stock markets,
Yeah.
naturally to also run the page alongside it.
Yeah, you got a lot of explanations, a lot of analysis on your channel, which is really good for people who are interested in individual stocks, to learn about the process of, analyzing, getting through it. So I'll definitely leave the link to your channel in the description, guys. Go check Bert out. So on the Netherlands, is there any reason why you're so heavily invested in the Netherlands? Is it a home bias, or do you really think there's opportunity in the market?
Actually, since I started investing in companies only US based. So it's been like only since last year that I started looking at companies in the Netherlands.
Okay.
US market is the most liquid. The most kind of companies are available. The Dutch market is much smaller. We are a country with around 17 million inhabitants.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually only started investing since last year in Dutch companies.
Yeah. But there's some really good ones in the Dutch market. It's definitely one of my preferences in Europe in terms of the strength of the market and the quality of the companies in there. So maybe let's talk a bit about it. So about the index. So there's 25 companies in the main index in the Netherlands. And it must have some history, because if I remember correctly, the Netherlands actually kind of invented the concept of the stock market, or birthed the concept of where the stock market comes from, if that's right.
Yeah, it's true. So that dates back to, I think like 500 to 600 years ago. I think it was when we kind of were the country that was central in world trade. So we had all kinds of ships, and we went across the world trading in all kinds of spices, etc. And they invented a way for people to become a partial owner of the company that was doing the trading, and that's kind of the birth of the stock market.
Yeah. And now look what we have today, a digitalized trading, digitalized investing at our fingertips. It's really great.
But the AEX index, it's an abbreviation for the Amsterdam Exchange index, and it was founded in 1983. And it actually started as an options exchange. So there was a Dutch guy who was also in the US, and he saw the option trading in the US, and he wanted to trade options in the Netherlands too. And if you trade options, you are of course speculating on prices. And he wanted to speculate on stock prices of Dutch companies. So they needed to form a kind of index to make that possible, so that they would have a weighted average of all the companies in the Netherlands, so that they could speculate on that average. So that's kind of the origination. It originated from a guy that wanted to be able to do option trading in the Netherlands.
Yeah. And when it comes to the index, you say it's weighted, and in the Belgium video that I did where I looked at the Bel 20, so that index is only reviewed once a year, but I understand the AEX is reviewed 4 times a year, if that's correct.
Yeah, the information differs. So I also read that it would be once every 2 years, but I don't think that there's a vast rule that they are using.
Okay.
I think as of late that they are re-evaluating it more frequently than they did in the past. That's also because things change so quickly. Look at Tesla in the US, which suddenly got a huge market cap and had to be added to the S&P.
Yeah, that's true. But like you say, I don't think there's any companies in the Netherlands or in Europe in general, for that matter, that are really increasing their market cap that quickly that it prompts a review of the index, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah. So to give the people an idea, so if you look at the market cap of the AEX index at the end of last year, so the end of 2020, so like 7 weeks ago, the market cap was 868 billion euros. And it's a weighted average, and it's a weighted average of free float. And with free float, I mean that they only count the shares that are tradable. So, for example, we have companies like Proces, which is a big company in the Netherlands, and they have a lot of shares that are owned by the people that are invested in the business, but the people hold the shares, and these shares are not tradable. So take that example, only 25% of the shares of Proces are actually tradable. So that's the only one that they count in the index. So it's about the free float and the weighted average of the free float. If we take a look at the biggest company as of now in terms of market cap, it's ASML. They have a free float of 100%. So all the stocks of ASML can be important part of the index.
And that leads nicely on to the next point. So in a lot of other indices, the top companies, the market share is a bit more evenly spread out, but it seems in the Netherlands that the top 3 companies, they take up each between 10 and 15% of that index composition. So I have down here, I have Unilever, I have ASML, as you say, and Shell as well. So these companies, taking up a lot of the percentage of that index.
If I look at the figures of, again, last day of December last year, I can see that ASML had a weight of 16.8%, Unilever 10.8%, and Royal Dutch Shell had a weighting of 10.6%. So if I would add these companies together, I would get around 38 to 39%.
Which is Yeah, which is it's pretty crazy, right? It's quite a big weight for three companies. But if you think about these three companies, I mean, all of them pretty much doing very big business. Shell in the oil and gas sector, operating globally. Unilever in the consumer sector, again, global businesses. And then ASML, semiconductor business. So yeah, big business. So kind of justifies those big percentages, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
also have a runner-up is Adyen. If we look at the figures of last year's, then we see that Adyen is one of the fastest growers in terms of market cap.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a big company.
Yeah, great. And so in that sense, so an exercise I've done with each stock market I've reviewed is compare the index to the economy of the country, which if we think about the Netherlands now, knowing that these three companies represent about 40% of the index, it skews that analysis a bit. So how well does the rest of the index represent the Dutch economy, if we want to look at it from that perspective, do you think?
If you look at the sector allocation in the index, so we see that around 20%, so if I see it correctly, around 18% is production technology equipment. That's of course because of ASML, which is big.
Yeah.
And we have other companies that are doing the same kind of thing, like also in the semiconductor industry, like ASM International, which is also a big company. Then we get the personal products, so that's kind of big. So we have companies like Philips, maybe you heard of.
Yeah, I've heard of Philips, yeah.
We have Heineken,
Of course, yeah.
beer company, of course. We have Ahold. Ahold is a big company.
Yeah. We'll come back to Ahold in a bit because that's one of my holdings. So yeah.
That's personal products. We then get with around 10% integrated oil and gas. So of course Shell is a big one over there. And then we get all the smaller things like banks, medical equipment, publishing, specialty chemicals, life insurance, retail, real estate, investment trusts, all these kinds of things, which are smaller components.
Yeah. To
the economy, I think that the Netherlands is kind of an open economy. We have a lot of export and import products. So we're always trading with other countries. That's also, of course, where we originated from in history. And I think we're still doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also have a big agricultural sector, which is of course not shown in the stock index because these companies are not on the stock exchange.
Yeah.
But we're also big in that kind of sense that we're producing all kinds of foods. We also export all across the world. For example,
Yeah, of course, the port of Rotterdam, a key entry and exit point for a lot of goods coming in and out of Europe. And now a news that I actually saw recently as well to do with Brexit is that a lot of share trading that was once done in London is now moving over to Amsterdam as well, as a result of needing access to those EU markets. So do you think the banking sector in the Amsterdam Exchange could increase its share as a result of this?
Possibly. Yeah, it might take a while before these companies take a decision to move from London to Amsterdam.
Yeah.
I think it's growing, but of course the problem is that there's limited space. So we'll have to build
quite a small country, yeah.
more skyscrapers to get more office space because we don't have the place if we look into the
yeah, very true. Very true.
Places in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
If you look at the housing prices, they are sky high, and that's because there's no space. There's no space to build more.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. And in terms of returns that the index produces annually, how do they compare? So what is a typical annualized return from the AEX? Yeah, what is a typical return from the AEX?
I think if we compare it to the S&P 500, it's kind of on par in terms of movement. So if there's a crash in the S&P 500, we also see a crash in the AEX. Keeping track of these indexes every day, and I think that the sentiment in the US is kind of also determining the performance of the AEX.
Yeah.
So in 3:30 at 3:30 in the afternoon, the US market opens in Dutch time, and the Dutch stock market is open till like 5 or 6, so that's like a few hours before we close. But I also, when the US market opens, I always can see that opening is influencing the stock prices of my holdings in the Dutch stock market.
Yeah, I think it's a case for a lot of markets, but I know, yeah, European markets tend to react to news from the US quite a lot. In the case of Spain, I think maybe other countries as well, the European Central Bank and maybe local situations impact the stock market a little bit more as well. Are there any internal or factors closer to home that can impact the movements on the AEX?
It's mainly sector specific. So we have these companies that make up a large percentage of the AEX index. So, for example, Shell used to be the biggest company on the AEX index. And Shell, if we look at the share price movements, has been trending downwards for the past years. It's now, getting back up. But Shell was it basically sunk to below 10 euros, while it used to trade close to 30 euros. So
yeah, I'll tell you all about that in just a minute. Yeah, when we come round to our holdings. But
Yeah.
and of course, because Shell was down, the index was down for a while too, because Shell made up a large component of the index.
Of course, yeah.
As of lately, because the semiconductor companies have been growing fast, because Agenda has been growing fast, we're seeing higher returns on the AEX index. But that's of course, 3 companies make up around 40% of the index. So,
and if they'll, of course, they'll dictate the performance of that index to some extent. Yeah. Great. So let's come around to our investments in the Netherlands. I'll maybe start. So I have had 4 investments in the Netherlands. I'm still holding on to 3. I sold one of them. So the one I sold was Shell. So I bought Shell back in 2019 at around the 30 euro mark per share, as you said. I didn't really do the due diligence on it. I looked at the financials. High level, it looked really good. Nice dividend yield. I thought, great, let me put my money in there. And then March 2020 comes around, lockdowns, oil crisis, and down went Shell. That's the story there. It wasn't a panic sell, so to speak. It was more a few months later. So another oil company I'm holding, Total from France, was paying a much better dividend yield. So as I saw Shell with a much slower recovery, I decided to close this position, and I'm going to move the money into Total and see if I can recover some of the losses through the dividends that way. So yeah, so that's
it's transitioning in the business right now.
Yeah.
Stepping into all kind of renewable energy projects to offset the losses in the oil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they might be successful on that in the long term.
Exactly, it's very much a long-term thing.
Yeah. The oil price is rising as of now, so Shell is also recovering. We'll see how it goes.
We will see, yeah. But yeah, as you say, a long-term project. I don't think in terms of short-term returns, I don't think we'll see a return to normal anytime soon. So the next one I have, KPN, so KPN, the telecom operator. So I used to work in the telecom sector, and at the time I invested, KPN was very much dominant in the telecom space in the Netherlands, because there's only 2 operators, maybe a third one soon, I believe. But the majority of that market is obviously dominated by KPN and Ziggo. And so, again, being a novice investor that I was at the time, I saw it had a dividend. I understood their business more or less. I thought this is a good business to invest in, particularly how they're advancing in the 5G space. It's done well. I've got some really nice dividends from it. It crashed quite a bit as well during the crisis, but I'm now back in green numbers in terms of the share price. Would I invest in it today? Probably not, but I know there's talk of it being taken over, and the dividend yield is quite nice. So for the moment, I'm holding on to KPN.
I actually have a call option on KPN.
Oh yeah, tell us a bit about this.
It's expiring in April. I have call option on a price of €3.20.
Oof,
So I
that's,
think
yeah.
it's still trading below 290. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's at about the 290 mark. 286 was about the price I bought in at. I think it's 293 now. Yeah,
The only thing I can lose is the option premium that I paid. So
exactly. Yeah.
we'll see. It's in an uptrend. So I have 2 months left. So
Yeah.
I think it's possible.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. See if you get a nice cash in from from that. Yeah. So the next one I have, you may have heard of it. This is not in the main index, but NetApp.
Yeah, I heard of it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not obviously not a well-known company, but essentially it's involved in, it's a technology company essentially. It's got a lot of RFID technology, livestock management, identification systems, these kinds of things. I really like the business. It's got a good dividend yield, of course. That's something I always look for. But particularly in terms of what they're doing,
I'm going to write it down to do some research on it.
yeah, love to see your thoughts on it as well. But essentially, yeah, if we think about how the economy, the world in general is becoming a lot more digitalized, we think about the concept of smart cities, which is something futuristic, but a lot of the technology that NetApp is working on is definitely something that will be of use in the future as cities and countries in the world becomes digitalized. So I really have a futuristic outlook on this company, and that's why I invested in that one. I've got one more. So the last one is Ahold, the one that you mentioned before. So obviously, kind of a holding group for many supermarkets. Albert Heijn in the Netherlands, Delhaize in Belgium, has supermarkets in Eastern Europe and the US as well. So I really like the positioning of their business model in terms of supermarkets. They're moving towards a digitalized shopper experience, of course, and from being in an Albert Heijn store in the Netherlands one time, I was very impressed with the quality of the products as well. So yeah, I think it's a very stable business. I don't expect massive returns from it, but again, nice dividend. It's a stable, steady cash cow if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah, I think you need that kind of companies in your portfolio too.
Yeah.
I personally have Kroger, which is a big US supermarket.
Yeah.
And I feel kind of the same like you are feeling about your Ahold holding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that was all my holdings. So I'll hand it over to you, and you can tell us a bit about what you're investing in the Netherlands.
Yeah, so I have recently bought shares in ASML.
ASML, yes.
So I bought them above €400, which is kind of late to the party because I'm a teacher and I'm also always talking about stocks, and I always take ASML as an example for.
Yeah, you mentioned it in the Genuine Impact call as well. Yeah.
And I've been talking about ASML since like it was €100.
Yeah.
And now I finally bought it when it was €410. So ASML is now trading around €500. Why do I like ASML now? It's a semiconductor company in the sense that they produce the machines that they sell to the semiconductor producers. So they are kind of a monopoly. They have the technology that other companies don't. So they can only go up in my view. This is a company that has patents, and they have knowledge that other companies don't, and in that sense, I think they have a lot of room to grow into the future. Yeah. So they sell the machines to the chip makers, which use the machines of ASML to produce. So they don't sell a lot of machines, but the machines that they do sell, of course, offer a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah, great.
Kind of interesting to see. And I am bullish on them for the long term, especially if I look 20 to 30 years into the future.
Yeah.
Grow by just buying.
Yeah.
So that's one. I also had ASN International. So I was looking for some exposure into the semiconductor industry, but then at companies that produce semiconductor equipment. I found ASM International, which is not to be confused with ASML.
Yeah.
First three letters are the same, ASM, but then it's followed by International, ASM International.
Yeah.
And these companies have something in common too, but I'm not going to go into that. They have some commonalities in the origin of the companies.
Mm-hmm.
ASM International is a semiconductor company. They produce semiconductor equipment. Sorry. I was looking for a company to invest in, and I thought, why wouldn't I invest in a company that I can find close at home? And it's kind of a global company, but it's in the Dutch stock exchange, so they do business in all over the world.
Yeah.
But most of the business is outside of Europe. But I like Dutch roots, and that's why I invested in it, and it did really well. I bought it I think maybe 8 months ago, around 130 euros, and now it's trading at 250. Last time I looked, I haven't looked into my portfolio today, I have to be honest.
Yeah.
It already doubled. So the semiconductor industry on the AEX is doing very well right now. I also have Proces, and Proces is a spin-off of Naspers, which was a South African company. And Proces is basically a kind of an investment company. They invest in other businesses. And they have, for example, a more than 30% stake in Tencent, which is a Chinese social media giant. So I was looking at the stock price of Proces, and I was basically able to buy it at a discount, because if they would sell the shares of the Tencent stake they have, it would be larger than the current market cap.
Oh. Wow.
Including all the other businesses that they hold. Like, for example, they have, a stake in Delivery Hero. They have a lot of stakes in companies in India, which I think is a growing market with a lot of future potential. And yeah, you can find it on the internet. But if you look at Proces, you will see, and you will be impressed with all the companies that they have ownership in. So that's what I like. They invest in technology. They invest in the future. And I like to be part of that, so that's why I bought shares in their business. And I think we're complete in terms of the Dutch companies that I possess as of now.
Okay, great. All right, so that kind of draws it to an end. So Bert, thank you very much for coming on the channel, giving your thoughts and educating us about the Dutch index, the AEX. So guys, I'll leave the link to Bert's channel, Dividend Shots, down in the description. Make sure you go check him out. He's got some great technical analysis, stock analysis, investing theory videos for you to learn about. So thank you, Bert, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you, Jonny. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Perhaps you can collaborate on other things in the future soon.
Absolutely, yeah. So I hope that video was enjoyable and of use to you guys. Leave a comment, let me know, are you investing in the Netherlands? Do any of these companies that we talked about interest you? Let us know down below. That's all from today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure you tell another millennial that this channel is where the good stuff goes down. Be sure to check out the Millennials with Money social media and internet pages, and also the other videos on this channel. Right, 5th attempt to get this intro right. I'll see you on the next one, and let's get this money.